So, folks, when we're talking about advice, I know there was a point where when I would find one individual who would give me one piece of good advice in a particular area, I would make the mistake and go, oh, they gave me advice in that area. It totally worked out. I'm going to get advice from them about everything, right? Like imagine like a best friend. You get their advice on everything. Now, what's really, really important to keep in mind, folks, is this idea that I got from a book, which I think is absolutely priceless. It's amazing. It has helped me to beyond belief. And it was this idea of get your advice from someone who has what you want. Get your advice from someone who already has something that you want. So we can break that down into 3 steps. So let's pick anything. Let's say I want to become a good swimmer. Would it make sense for me to go up to someone who's never swam a day before in their life and go, hey man, can you give me some advice on swimming? Even if he wants to help me out, he's a super nice guy, he'll give me the best answer. Oh yeah, keep your elbows in and just claw forward as fast as you can and keep your mouth out of the water, right? He'll do his best. But it's really, really important that in that moment I go, you know what? Has John ever swam before? Does he even know how to swim? Does he have what I want? Do I want his swimming skills? If the answer is no, then should I be taking his advice? Right? For example, if I want to go start a small business, I'm not going to ask someone who's never started a small business. Maybe I'll go ask someone who has, right? Who's been doing it for a year or has been doing it for the last 6 months. Go up to him, hey man, so I saw that you started your business. I'm kind of thinking of doing the same things. Do you have any advice? Do you have any tips for me? And being able to look at him who's gone through the trenches and he's gone through the step-by-step process, he might have some really valuable and practical information for me. And then the in-between step is you have an individual who they don't have what you want, but they're on their way to getting there. For example, let's say I want to be a huge bodybuilder. I want to get super big. I want to get ripped. If I go to someone who's never been to the gym, that's like, okay, I don't know how much value you can give me there in your advice. I should still take it. Don't get me wrong. Don't go into the mindset of you have nothing to offer me. You should always be open-minded, but just have that in the back of your head and how much value you want to put on their piece of advice. So you can go to someone who's never gone to the gym before, who doesn't even like working out. You can get their advice. That's one thing. The best thing is you go find a bodybuilder in the gym who you've seen him hit the gym 6 times, 7 times a week. And you go, hey man, I've noticed you've been in the gym a lot. Do you have any tips, any tricks? Like, what do you do in terms of diet? And they'll give you the total lowdown. And in theory, if you follow their formula to a T, now I know biologically things are going to be different in terms of height, in terms of weight, metabolic rate, whatever. But in theory, if you take their diet, if you take how often they work out, how they work out, you should get a pretty similar result to what they have. If that's what you want, fantastic. Sometimes, let's say you go to a gym and you don't see that. You don't see that bodybuilder in person, right? So you go up to someone who you see they're hitting the gym 2-3 times a week. They're not exactly what you want, but you see he's working on his way there. Is that a good guy to ask for advice? Now, thinking about what we just said earlier, you'd say, well, Daniel, he doesn't have what I'm looking for. But very much like myself, he's on his way to there. So maybe it wouldn't hurt to look at his plan and to see, he's only going 3 times a week right now, but in a couple of weeks, he's going to start going 4 times, 5 times. He's going to be adjusting his diet. Maybe it's not a bad idea to get advice from him too. So number 1, folks, the best person, in my opinion, to get advice from is the person who already has what you're after. Why? Because they have the formula. If I want to know how to bake a certain specific cake, the best person to ask is a person who's already made this super specific cake. Right? Because they have, yeah man, I did this. Step 1, I did this. Step 2, I did this. Step 3, I did that. And they can lay it out for you. As opposed to, this happens all the time. I was in a situation recently where I have a buddy of mine, super awesome, great guy, super friendly, super fun, life of the party. I asked him, I was like, hey man, when you go up to a group, when you want to get a group's attention, and basically something revolved with when you want to tell a joke, you want to get people's attention, what do you do? He gave me some advice. I used it at a party. It worked like no other. I was like, this is amazing. I asked him for some more advice. The thing about my friend was, he's not a gym guy at all. Doesn't work out, eats whatever he likes, totally to each their own. And I remember I was asking him for gym advice, and as you can imagine, it didn't go too well. It didn't go too well. I pretty soon realized, I was like, oh, like if I want communication, based, social gathering communication based, he is the guy to go to. But maybe in terms of physical aspects, in terms of fitness, he's not my guy. right? If I want to talk about, saving, being financially smart with my money, and this is the part where I want to take those general concepts of, looking at who you ask for advice. I want you to apply this to your life. Think about anything. Think about, let's go with fitness, because fitness is something that everyone's always looking after or knows of. When you think about your circle, when you think about your family members, your relatives, your friends, if you were to, who is the most fit person that you know? Who is the most fit person that you know? Who you look at his body and you look at his lifestyle, the shape that he's in, and you go, you know what? Ideally in the future, I would like to look something like this. Like, this is something that I approve of. Once you have that individual, it's really good to keep in mind and think, if I want to ask someone for advice, this is the guy I'll go to for fitness. Now, do the same thing, but instead of fitness, think about which of the people around me is most financially well off. Now, financially well off can mean a bunch of different things. It could mean who has the biggest savings account. It could mean, is there anyone who's involved in investing? It could mean anyone who's, you name it, right? Whatever that word means to you, financially well off. And just make sure that you realize that you distinguish the categories. Your top fitness guru advice guy does not also have to be your relationship advice and your fitness advice and your financial advice. You know what I mean? So just really important that you figure out, who do I go for what? And what do they have that I want? Let's say you look at me, you watch me swim, you go, oh, Daniel, you have a sweet breaststroke, man. Can you give me a few tips? If you like what I do, I can totally give you the tips, the recipes to end up doing what I'm doing. You go look at my trigonometry marks back in high school. Hey, man, can you give me some tips on trigonometry? Unless you want that C+, you do not want to ask me about my tips in trigonometry. I think that is such a basic piece of advice, which is funny because it's advice about who to get your advice from and how to take it. But it goes a long, long way. And then I think it broadens to the point of, it's not only the people in your life, but it's everything. It's the books that you read. It's the kind of videos that you watch, the things that you see on YouTube. And you can really work on opening and closing your door of how much you want to let inside. And again, how much weight do you want to put on that opinion? Right? Is it going to be one of those where you go, wow, that was incredible, I got to write that piece of advice down? Or one of those ones where you go, hey, man, I really appreciate you sharing that, but goes in one ear, goes out the other ear.